Welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. It's about becoming the chief decision maker over your life in order to step into a life of freedom. From business, health, wealth, charity, and giving back to just doing life on your own terms. I am your host, Shay Mbediata. I am an award-winning activist, change maker, and a multifaceted impact entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in business, philanthropy, and health and wellness. In this space, I'm going to be bringing you insights, not just from me, but from incredible thought leaders around the globe to help you start making decisions towards living a life of freedom so you can live a life you love. Are you ready, guys? Because we are going all in. She's been honored twice with the distinction of the WXN's Top 100 Most Powerful Women Female Entrepreneur of the Year Award and Canada's Top 40 Under 40. She has spoken at events such as Forbes Women's Summit and the Nexus UN Global Summit. She is Reetu Gupta. Reetu is a speaker, advocate, philanthropist, and the ambassadress of the Gupta Group, where she focuses on creating impact and opportunity. She is the co-founder and chief strategy officer of Rogue Insight Capital, the private venture capital arm of the Gupta Group, focusing on investing in Canadian startups with female and or minority leadership. Reetu relaunched the Gupta Family Foundation in 2020, where she serves as president and co-chair and is able to provide long-term solution to global issues. She's the founder and president of the Shakti Society, which provides complimentary meditation classes to empower all individuals with courage and to instill a strong sense of confidence. To say she's a powerhouse woman is truly an understatement. But my favorite attribute of Reetu is her heart of gold, which you two will discover on today's inspirational episode. Okay, welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. I have a dear friend of mine today on the show who's also such a badass powerhouse female, Reetu Gupta. Thank you for coming on today. I'm so happy you are here.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So, when I first wanted to have you on, there's so many things that we can dive into from background of culture and being a woman in business, coming from, an Indian family, being in Canada, immigration, building, and we're going to dive into this story as well, but a huge real estate empire, still holding your feminine energy so eloquently as you do, but still dominating in such a masculine space. It was like, where do we even start? You also have a new book that you've just launched, which we're going to talk about as well. Mm-hmm. So before we get into the big stuff, I want to start with the important stuff of who is Reetu? Share with us a little of your journey and who you are today.
Sure. Whenever people ask me, so tell me about yourself and who are you? My initial thought process is always, I am just a crazy brown girl. And I actually have no idea how I've continued to have a job, because the one thing that I always make sure that I do, Shay, is that I'm always the same person, whether I'm in the boardroom, whether I'm in meditation, whether I'm in meetings, I'm kind of always the same person. And I think for me, this person, this Reetu that sits in front of you, is someone that loves real estate, loves hotels. I feel very, very blessed that I was able to be born into a family where this is their primary business. Obviously, immigrant family, parents came from India in the 70s, born here, minority, female, usually the youngest girl in the room, usually the youngest, as I got older, the youngest woman in the room, usually the only brown person in the room. It comes with a lot of challenges and a lot of struggles. But for me, I am damn proud to be a woman. I am damn proud to be Indian and Hindu and Punjabi. And I love to be able to represent these things in my daily life as well. So, for example, today I'm here at the Canopy by Hilton, Toronto, Yorkville. And whenever I'm here on site, Shay, I always light my incense. And I have a little kind of Indian, we call it a thali, which is like a tray. And that's just sort of my spirituality that I like to bring into the workplace. And that is kind of me in a nutshell. So definitely spiritual, business-minded, ambitious, and 100% woman, no matter what.
I love it. I love it. And if you aren't following Reetu, definitely make sure to give her a follow on Instagram, because you will see all of the feminine side that she is, that combines with like the powerhouse. And she's doing so many incredible things, you know, growing their business empire to the next level. As we kind of get into some of the real estate stuff, which you and I both share a passion and love for as well, coming from both family backgrounds in the real estate industry, before even stepping into the business, growing up, did you have this idea or this vision that yes, one day I wanted to be in business with my dad, with my brother, with the family? And also too, just for some context, maybe share a little bit in your words, like what your family does, because it's not just your family. There's other empires within your family, you know, that's in the real estate and the hotel space. So maybe share just like a little bit of who is the Easton Group today? What is the Gupta family up to? And then we'll come back to like what your vision was when you were a little girl.
Sure.
Like, yeah.
No, 100%. So Easton's today is not the same Easton's that it was when we started the company, which is 40 years ago. So Easton's 40 years ago, my dad started this whole company with a truck stop, and it was a truck stop in Port Hope, Ontario. And from that, my dad is such a visionary that he thought, okay, I need to build out this truck stop. And he added a hotel, and he added a Harvey's, a Swiss Chalet. And that is how we got into hospitality. So my dad's dream coming from India was always to have hotels. And back in the 80s, we also, before we got into hotels was the 90s. In the 80s, we had apartment buildings, and that sort of grew and evolved into hotels. And now we're here today. Easton's has about 25 hotels in our portfolio across Ontario and Quebec. Then we have the Gupta Group, which is our development side. And we have a few different high-rise developments in GTA. We actually just launched one on September 21st. And then we have, my brother and I launched our VC firm, which is called Rogue Inside Capital. And my brother and I are also the heads of our family foundation, which is called the Gupta Family Foundation. So that is the company kind of where it stands today.
Oh, so incredible. And I love that. I didn't know that it started out as a truck stop.
Yeah.
Oh, and just like the growth, this is like when you have vision and just continue to build. And so when you think of actually now like truck stop days, right? You would have been, well, you weren't even born yet when your dad first started that, but you grew up in this evolution of the business from truck stop to the restaurant industry and then adding in hotels. At what point did you see yourself wanting to get into the family business?
You know, it's so interesting because I always loved hotels, and my dad would always take me to construction sites. And Shay, I bet you have a similar story, okay? So for me, it is so geeky. This is the geekiest thing that I will ever share with you. Whenever we would go to construction sites, somehow it was usually around that time, they would be spreading tar for the roads, and they would be spreading tar for the parking lots and that type of thing. And until this day, the smell of tar gets me excited because I feel like there's a new hotel coming. It is the geekiest thing. And I'm sure you have similar stories growing up in the industry. So yeah. For me, yes, for sure. Right. So for me, I've always loved hotels and loved construction. My dad would take me to sites. I was really young. I don't even know how that was allowed, but I remember, going to construction sites and having to walk across these wooden planks because there's, gaping trenches beneath. And my dad just walks across. He had no fear. And I was so scared, but I loved the energy about it. Oddly, though, being in school, my parents they didn't even give us business as an option. They told my siblings and I, doctor or lawyer. Those were our only two options. So as much as I love business, I didn't really decide that I was going to go into the business until high school, which doesn't make sense because every summer I was working at our family office. So it was just a strange kind of childhood.
Yeah, no, but I love that. And then it's just, life happens the way that it's supposed to, and then you find your footing and you basically stepped in. And I actually don't even know this about you. So I'm going to ask this. Have you ever worked for somebody else?
Yes. Yes, I did. Oh my Lord. So it's obviously, I worked in the family company for so much of my life. And then one summer I decided, no, you know what? I'm going to rebel. I'm going to go do my own thing. And I got a job at an insurance company. And I was just an assistant, right? Helping them with their tasks. Shay, oh my God. It was the one thing that I love, and I'm sure you love this too, about being in your not being your own boss, but being in a family business, things work really fast. And as a family, when you want to make a decision, it happens immediately, right? So you're always working at a fast pace. And the one kind of joke. I'll say it's not really a joke, but everyone knows about me. I work at 3,000 miles an hour, and working at the insurance company, my God, it was the slowest pace I have ever dealt with in life. I have never been so bored, to the point that my boss would come to me and sit me down and say, okay, Reetu, you're working too fast. These tasks, you have to spread it out over 2 weeks. I was just like, no, just no.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They actually said that to you.
Yes. Spread out your tasks. Like, are you kidding me? Why? I'm not, that's not my nature, you know, to not even to slow down, but to kind of put off what I can do today. Yeah.
And you're not at a law firm where you're dealing with billable hours.
Yeah.
Like you would think you want your employee to be efficient and work and get it done.
Yes. Not there. Not there.
My goodness. So that's amazing. So you had a little glimpse of what life could be like outside of the family business. Yeah. And you said, no, that's not for me. I'm coming and stepping back in. How, for you, how has that been? What's been challenging for you in being in a family business?
Oh God.
Also, you probably share a few of these.
Yeah, exactly. Where should we start with that? So God. Okay, I'll start from the beginning, meaning when I was in university. So I graduated. I decided not to step out of the company because I did that this summer before I graduated and just said, this is not for me. So once I graduated, I was working with the company, but I didn't want to work at the head office with the rest of the family. I wanted to step out and work in the hotels. But what's interesting, and I don't know if this is like a South Asian parenting thing, but I went to the hotels and I was a kid, right? I was 23. I didn't know what to do. And when you're the boss's daughter, no one tells you what to do, right? I was just kind of there, essentially. So I remember calling my mom and saying, okay, Mom, I'm here. What do you want me to do? And typical South Asian parenting style, she's like, what do you mean? Why are you asking me? Am I there? Figure it out. You're there. So, and honestly, it was a blessing, because if they had handheld me, I wouldn't be who I am today. So instead, I started researching. I started working in housekeeping and behind the front desk and in sales and trying to find issues and trying to understand, how does a hotel actually run? And it was amazing. But what's interesting is that I think my parents did this on purpose, where they gave me very little information. So they would just kind of throw me to the wolves, and it was like sink or swim. And for me, sink is never an option. So it was just kind of trying to find my way.
I love it. Okay. So I think some people that are listening can be in very similar scenarios of entering into a family business. What advice do you give to, I'm going to say even women, because we're in harder industries, right? Where there's still more male dominant. And even though, interestingly enough, in real estate, there's so many women, but much of it is controlled. And when you look at who's at the height of success, it's usually a male figure at the top.
Yeah.
And so being a female stepping into this industry, and also within the family, what advice do you give to women to literally create their own table or create their seat at the table?
You know, I think especially for women that are coming in family businesses, and when there's the patriarch, right? There's the male patriarch. It's just, I completely understand how different it is. For me and for my situation, I was very blessed that my parents, as opposed to society, right? My parents never treated me like I was a woman. Or I was, there's my dad, who's a patriarch, and then there's Reet, who's the female. And when I stepped into the role of CEO, when my parents asked me to step into the role, I had asked my parents that, and I said, okay, Dad, you've held this role for how many years? It's always been a man. Now it's going to be female. Are you worried? And his response was, what difference does it make? So it was such a kind of a different mindset. And I completely understand working in an industry where it's all men 24/7. I think what the advice that I would give is, you can't focus on that. If you're constantly focusing on, I'm the only female in the room, this industry is entirely men, you've defeated yourself already in your mind. You have to tell yourself that I deserve to be here. And male, female, what difference does it make? It doesn't make any difference. You and I know that, right? And I understand that society has a ways to go, right, before they can catch up to that kind of thinking. But I think it all starts, Shay, with positive self-talk, and not giving yourself that defeated attitude of only looking at the negatives. Look at the positive. You're an amazing female. If you're going to create your own table, you have a seat at the table, make sure your voice is heard, because it's our time now. And it's time that our voices are heard, that our power is heard, and that our power is felt.
Totally. And, as you're talking, I just keep thinking about courage and also that confidence, the two together. And really hearing your father's response of why does that matter really must have instilled the confidence in you to really be courageous in these boardrooms, in these big meetings where predominantly it is men, you know? And so as I hear you say that, you know, I extend that to other women to know, like you said, knowing your value and worth and the positive mindset. And when you believe that, you have that confidence, and all you need to do is like 10 seconds of courage to step into that boardroom, to sit at that table and own your space, own your voice. And so, yeah, that's what I was thinking as you were talking. I'm like, and I know you love your C's. There's 3 C's you talk about.
Yeah. Yes, no, it's so beautiful that you were talking about courage and conviction, because for me, those 3 C's that is all written in my book is courage, conviction, and confidence. And for me, it is these 3 C's that have helped me in situations where, you know, you enter a boardroom and you feel like all of the odds are against you because it's all men. And for me, especially with a name like Reetu, a lot of people, when I grew up in this industry, they didn't know if that was male or female. So when they saw my title, whether it was VP or COO or CEO, they just assumed that it was male. So when I walked into the room, they consistently assumed that I was my dad's assistant. And they, you know, I would take a seat at the table and they would look at me and say, will your dad be joining us? And it was just, you know, you really have to have a lot of patience as well to not, you know, just to understand that, okay, all you have to do is teach them the right way. That is it. And not get angry and not get emotional and not get, you know, in your feelings. For me, I've always put business first and said, okay, I have a goal that I want to accomplish here. And it is not going to be accomplished if I get super irritated at these men that are very narrow-minded, as much as it's so difficult to do sometimes.
Okay, I have to ask you, what is your response to that question? Will your father be joining us?
Oh God, there's so many more questions I can tell you. So the response to that usually was, I'm Reetu. I'm the one that you've been dealing with via email. I'm the CEO. We will have our chat. My father may join us, you know, later on during the meeting. Usually my dad was involved in these meetings. It was just that was our strategy, right? I would start. If there's an issue, my dad would come in. And then, you know, they kind of look stunned for a second. They don't know what to do. And then we would start the meeting. But you have to keep that confidence, right? You have to keep that courage to say, okay, they were expecting someone else, and that's okay, because this is all they're going to get. So you just have to keep going.
Totally. Oh man, I can only imagine how many conversations like this you've had over the years. Yeah, I can only imagine how many conversations you've had.
Oh, ridiculous. So many ridiculous stories, Shay. At one point, I was in a meeting and it was a real estate transaction. Okay. So it was with a company from overseas and there's about 20 people in the boardroom. First of all, we'll say the middleman, because it was all men, he put me at the bloody end of the table. So not with my team, not with my dad and our CFO and the rest of the team, put me on the end of the table. There's literally tumbleweed. It was just at the end of the table. So again, for me, business first. I wasn't going to make a scene because I wanted this deal to go through. I'm watching the deal and I'm watching it happen and I can see that it's not going the right way. So I stood up and I walked to the center of the table and I'm whispering to my dad, you know, this is what we should do next. Shay, the dude, I'm going to say dude, next to my dad, doesn't work in our company. I didn't have a chair. He looks at me and pats his lap in front of everyone, motioning for me to sit in his lap because I didn't have a chair. Yeah.
With your father standing there?
With my father sitting next to him. Yep. And my CFO and yeah. It was disgusting. And, you know, I'm from Scarborough, right? So the reactions that I wanted to have in that moment, definitely not professional. And I just said, don't do it. Don't do it. It is not worth it. I just stood up and I just looked at him and I said, no, thank you. And I went back to my seat at the end of the table. And at that point, they brought a chair and all that. And I was just like, nope, I'm going to go back and sit and breathe.
This is a prime example of what would not happen if you were a man.
100%.
Right?
100%.
Like if you were a man, that would have never have happened.
Nope.
How many years ago was that, do you think?
What year are we in? 9?
We're in 2023.
Yep. So about 9 years ago.
Wow.
I've also had people talk about marketing plans, Shay, and I'm telling them, you know, you need to change it around. And somebody will say, well, if you want it to be sexy, tell Reetu to do it. I'm just like, what? Again, would you say that to a dude?
do you still have this in the workplace? Like, are you still experiencing things like this?
Honestly, no. There's still that the shock sometimes of people when they see, you know, there's the head of the company and it's a female that walks into the room. I definitely see that. And if I can be honest, Shay, I'm finding that this whole whatever you want to call it, this experience has changed. Now, suddenly, as I've grown in the company, I'm having people say to me, oh, either I have too much masculine energy, too much, or not enough masculine energy, or people will just start telling me what they think to my face. Like, you know, I really thought you were going to be this like evil male type. What does that mean? Male type personality. Did I ask you?
Yeah.
No. But people just feel free to tell me their opinion all the time to my face. It is very strange. Very strange. I'm sure you must get this too. I thought you would be like this. Okay.
Yeah, you know, honestly, I think that happens more so with my father.
Okay.
People, when they meet him, everything you kind of just said, they expect him to be unkind, unapproachable. And I mean, you've met my father.
Yeah.
You know, people meet him and they're like, wow, he's so kind, or he's so funny.
Yeah.
You know, I think I don't get that as much. And I'm not saying you're not this, because who you are on social media is 100% who you are in person, like 100%. But I think if you are only interacting with Reetu behind email and then meeting you, I could see why that would be that way. But because I show up so much on social media, and you're upping your game these days, you know, so, you know, I think that'll help you, because for me, it's kind of like, yep, that's how you were in social media. And so I see that's how you are. Whereas my dad, he's on social now, but for so long, that was never a part of the business strategy, right? Like for our fathers growing up. And so it was more, he would get that. People would be like, wow, he's so nice. Like, I thought he was going to be the opposite, you know? And he's definitely nicer in business than I am. I say that all day long.
I disagree. I have seen you in business and you're badass and still kind and still sweet and doing amazing things in the world.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Hey, let's maybe shift a little bit from some of the challenges, like as being a woman in business, and now somebody who's in growth mode, right? Like your guys' company really is an empire. And I know that you're not stopping for anything. And you and your brother, who are also working together within the business as a whole, have your own ideas, your own visions, and your own dreams to add on to what has already been established and created. In this moment, like, how do you find how do you work around the different challenges of growth?
Oh, that's such a great question. You know, it's interesting because there's also generational differences, right? So there's goals that I have. Suraj is my brother. We always share the same goals. And then there's goals that my parents have. So one of the main challenges is trying to bring all of these goals together and to make sure that it aligns with the overall family strategy. So that's definitely been an interesting conversation. Just, okay, so where do you want the company to be in 20 years and 30 years? What do we want that to look like? And if we're going to go down that road, there are changes that we have to make now. So I think for me, in terms of growth, that's been one of the major challenges of making sure that the entire family is aligned with, okay, if we're going to shift our strategy and we're going to keep evolving the company, we want all the stakeholders to buy into it, right? And to understand that, okay, we all agree that this is the goal. So it's a little bit different. Whereas, 10, 15 years ago, our strategy was different. It's not that they were smaller strategies, but it was more so growth in terms of adding hotels to our portfolio. Perfect. Or now adding condos to the portfolio. Okay, makes sense. But if we're now going to be, adding books or going into VC or looking at hotels outside of Canada, it's a completely different ballpark. So that's definitely been a lot of family conversations to understand how we're going to do this, what's going to make the most sense, and making sure that we're all aligned.
And how are you guys integrating technology and AI into your business right now?
Oh, you know what's interesting? So in terms of tech, I mean, at the hotels, first of all, it's ever changing. So there's so many different ways that we're using tech at the hotels, whether you're looking at, you know, digital menus, digital keys, all that kind of thing. And then on the real estate side, as you know, there's so many different ways using AI that you can design condo suites, or that you can even look at renderings, or you can now walk through a rendering of a condo suite or a building. So it's definitely really fascinating, the different ways that you can use it, especially as marketing tools. It's really fascinating.
And when you think of like business in general, would you say, like, for entrepreneurs, would you say that there's a specific use for AI that you would advise or recommend that maybe they're missing to layer into their business?
You know, I think for entrepreneurs, it really depends on the industry. So for example, in the hotel business, if we're going to open new hotels, there are things and tools that we can use, which are AI for housekeeping. But for me right now, that would, not only does that take away, you know, human labor, which I don't want to do, but you also, I feel like it's so new that you also don't know, is it going to clean correctly? Are there going to be any deficiencies? And I don't want to take that risk. So I would suggest with any entrepreneur, if you're going down the AI route, make sure that it's tried, tested, and true, because I think a lot of people assume if it's AI, it's perfect. It's not perfect. You need to make sure that you're still able to achieve your goals because I think entrepreneurs are all the same, right? We're all type A. You all want things done a certain way. So I would just say, whatever industry you're in, and whether it's, you know, a marketing thing or a financial thing, just make sure that you've tested it and that the results are what you want it to be.
Mm-hmm. I love it. I love that. Reetu, let's talk about your book.
Okay.
You've got a book that I can't say the name. It's not that I can't say the name. It's a tongue twister for me. It's Auspicious.
You got it. Yes, you said it perfectly. Auspicious.
Okay. You say it way more eloquently than me. So let's dive in. It's now available online. We're going to put everything in the show link. So make sure that wherever you're tuning in from, the link is going to be in this episode. So make sure you go grab the book. Make sure you're following Reetu on social media as well. And I know she shows up in her DMs, so you can connect with her there. But let's talk about your book. What is it about? Why did you create this?
Yes, no, 100%. I'm so excited. Thank you so much. So I teach meditation. I've taught meditation since 2013, I want to say. And I would always teach for free. So I would just teach for free every Sunday at one of my hotels. And the reason I taught for free was I have found that meditation has been life-changing for me. And it has given me a state of peace and a state of clarity that I felt if I've been given this beautiful kind of gift in life, I want to be able to teach others and also give them this gift. So Shay, every time I would teach, I'm very old school, I would kind of take handwritten notes of, okay, what is the lesson that I want to give these students today? And mind you, my classes started with maybe 6 people. It grew after all these years naturally to, 20, 50 people, which was amazing. But every time I hand wrote these notes, I kept thinking this needs to be a book and I want to make this into a book. So last year, that was my goal, to transcribe all of my handwritten notes from 2014 and put it into a book. So for me, what I hope with the book is about, not just, honestly, I wouldn't say it's a book about spirituality. I think you'll find it in the spiritual and the spirituality sections in bookstores. But for me, it's more so about living life as your authentic self. And it's about living life with happiness and living life with love. And how do you do that? So for me, that is what the book is about. And I just really, truly hope that anybody that decides to read it or to pick it up, they just feel inspired in whichever way, because I feel inspiration is very personal, inspired in whichever way is the most meaningful for them. That's really, truly what I hope.
I love that. Well, I can't wait to read it. I got to get a signed copy from you.
I will give it to you anytime.
I cannot wait to read it. And there's so many, I know there's going to be so many powerful gifts and lessons and tools within your book. You talk about authentic expression or being your authentic self. And I want to know what that means for you, because today I feel like that term is thrown around so loosely, that it's almost like a catchphrase. So share with us, like, what does that mean for Reetu?
I completely agree with you. And when I was writing about being authentic self, and I was speaking to my publisher about this, and she was also using the word authentic. And I felt the same. I felt that everybody is saying this, but what does it mean? Because I feel like this word and this term and this catchphrase, as you say, it means something different for everyone. And for me, the reason why I wrote this book and the reason why I'm centering on being yourself it's a question that I'm asked quite a bit is, Reetu, how do you bring spirituality into workplace? How is it that, you know, I meet you in the boardroom and you're the same person when you're at a dinner table? Why is that? And I think for me, I really embraced who I am, and I don't like to change myself based on the people that I'm with. And I think that really takes, in the end of the day, for me, Shay, it just takes a lot of self-love. And that is what, for me, being authentic really is. It's about loving yourself as you are and loving who you identify with, who you identify as, and loving all of that. It doesn't matter what society says about you, whether, you know, you're a CEO and you need to be a male, throw all of that out the window. Whoever you are, the reason for this book is stand true in who you are, and the world will follow, because I find that the people that are the truest to themselves, not only are they the happiest, but they become sort of the beacons in society, right? People look at them and they say, you know what? Why is he, she, they, why are they so happy? And when you ask them, it's because they've just accepted themselves and they're not kind of trying to conform to what society is telling them to be. So that is really, truly what I hope people will get from being authentic. I hope that's what they get from it.
Totally. And there's so much freedom in that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's like when we talk about people being unhappy versus unhappy. And when you can actually own who you are and love who you are, that is so freeing, because you get to throw off the weight of the opinions of other people. You just go, well, this is who I am. If you don't like it, like, you don't have to be here. You don't have to kick it around here, right? Like, there's 8 other billion people on the planet. Like,
yes.
Those somewhere else.
100%.
So talk to me about, you know, because I think even like for other people, they have, most of us, right? We have our beliefs. We have, whether you're even agnostic and you might just acknowledge that there is a force out there, there's something greater than you and I that created all of this or is holding all of this together. But weaving that into business, what encouragement or maybe even some tactical advice that you would give around that? Like, how much is too much within the business? You mentioned you bring it into the boardroom. So obviously you are bringing it in. And is there a time and a place? Like, how do you find that balance?
The balance, are we talking about spirituality or what do you?
Yeah.
You know, I think for me, it's so ingrained into who I am that it's tough for me to not bring that into the workplace, because it is just who I am. Do I think that people might be rubbed the wrong way? Yes. Is there a time and a place? 100%. I'm not going to walk into a boardroom like a yogi, you know, and, you know, start doing yoga poses in the middle. Sometimes I want to, but I think that it also, you have to read the room a little bit as well, right? And you have to kind of understand, are these people on a spiritual path? Are they going to be open to it? Or is it just going to derail your entire meeting? You know, a few weeks ago, I was doing a really, really big strategy meeting, and I wanted to kind of change the energy and make everybody calm before we started, because I know everyone was a little bit nervous. It was a big kind of big topic item we were discussing. So I put on this really beautiful flute music while people were having breakfast, and I lit an incense, and I really wondered how people would react. Would they be turned off? Would they be irritated? But it worked. And everybody just said, wow, you know, you really created a different energy. And our strategy session went really well. However, if I was in a different type of meeting, I wouldn't go down that road, because you also have to know your audience, right? You have to understand what is your intention. If your intention is purely business, it might not be the best thing to light an incense and put it in the middle of the table. You can, it might be a conversation starter, but I definitely think you have to read the room and really know your audience before you bring up certain topics. It's like politics, right? You can't talk politics with everyone. So spirituality is the same way. For me, I live and breathe it. It is who I am, and that will not change. I'm definitely just, I read the room and I see people are going to be open to it, then I'll have that discussion.
And I think it also goes, you know, hand in hand to when you are showing up as your authentic self, you are embodying that regardless, all the time. Regardless of what type of boardroom you show up in, that is how you are. And if you're owning that piece, that's naturally what exudes without even using words, right? Like, you usually don't need to use words.
I agree. I feel like it's when it's a part of who you are, it's a part of your heart and your soul. You won't, it's one of those things where it'll just resonate off of you. And it's not even something that you can hide, right? Nor am I trying to hide it. It's just something, it's an energy, absolutely, that just kind of resonates off of you for sure.
Totally. Okay, so I want to ask you, you know, there's so many, you're managing huge things. We've talked about you going not just a mile a minute, but like 3,000 miles a minute, not slowing down. I want to ask first, like, how do you structure your day to make sure that what Reetu needs is taken care of? Or like, where do you find that time for doing something like yoga? You mentioned meditation as well. Walk me through the discipline of your day.
Absolutely. I love the word discipline because I feel that people shy away from that word. They shy away from being disciplined. I think it has a lot of negative connotations. And I think, you know, our generation too, the people that were disciplined, you know, they weren't cool. It was such a weird thing. Our generation was so weird the way we grew up. And I think that discipline is a beautiful thing. And it's nothing to be ashamed of or shy away from. So for me, I'm vegan. I don't drink. I wake up at between 5 and 5:30, and that's when I do my meditation. The reason why I wake up that early is because I like to do my meditation when the world is asleep. Because the second people start waking up and you get the emails and your mind will immediately go to work. So I start my day with meditation, with my gym, and then I can kind of start my actual work day. And that discipline for me is very, very important. Also, you know, you mentioned yoga. I think everyone has a way where they can kind of de-stress. I also do ballroom dance, and I will try to make a point at least once a week to be able to go and do that. And I think something, Shay, that people forget, and especially women, because as women, we play so many roles in life for so many people. You might be a mother, a sister, an aunt, a cousin, you know, there's so many different things. You might be a CEO, you're a colleague, you're a boss. We're always trying to manage all these roles for other people that we forget about managing the role of self-love. And I think that it's important every day in your calendar, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to do something for yourself. Maybe it's watching a Netflix show, maybe it's picking up a book, you know, it could anything, but you need to have a little bit of time where you say, this is my 15 minutes or my half an hour or my hour that is just for me. Whether it's meditation or you go for a walk, it is so, so important.
Totally. And like unplugging, not on your device, scrolling, you know, something that really actually serves your higher self and helps to raise your vibration, raise your frequency, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. So there's this trend these days, which maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't, around being sober curious. And I've seen on Instagram, it's actually amongst the younger generation, that there's like a new kind of movement or wave amongst young people that they consume the least amount of alcohol kind of in history so far. Like there's the most non-alcoholic beverages that we're seeing coming onto the market over the past few years. And I'm sure you probably have noticed this more than I have, where you go into bars and restaurants and there's like a whole mocktail section on the menu. Whereas before it would be like, I don't drink alcohol. What could you make for me? I'll just have water. Even at Christmas time in Toronto, like they have all the Christmas drinks and there's like supporting people who are the DDs. And so they create like all those Christmas drinks that are mocktails. And so there's this new term around sober curious. And you mentioned that you don't drink. Has that always been that way for you?
Sober curious is the funniest term I've heard all day. And I love that you knew that I would not have heard about this. This is the funniest thing to me. And I think it's a beautiful thing. The word is just hilarious. No, so you know what's funny? When you say to someone, I used to drink, you sound like there was a problem. There was no problem.
Sure.
Yes, yeah. Yes, I did used to drink. But honestly, the more that I started meditating, so this was maybe 2010, 2011, the more that I got into meditation, my body just didn't want it. It was, and I was already vegetarian at this point. And then my body just kind of became vegan because there was anything that was animal product, alcohol, whatever it was, I couldn't put it into my body anymore. My body was just kind of rejecting it. And my soul wanted to be free of all of these things. And so for me, I enjoy life as it is. I don't need these substances to give myself a good time. And I understand that the majority of people, they want alcohol to give themselves a good time. And I don't condone it. I don't look down on it at all. For me, you have to enjoy life. Whether that means you're eating meat or you're drinking or whatever you're doing, you have to enjoy life. With these things, I only would suggest just do it in moderation, right? So you're not throwing up, daily. Be careful and be mindful and do it in moderation. But I think what's important is that you enjoy life. It definitely makes me happy though to hear that there's people that are trying to explore life without it, because personally, I don't need it. And there's definitely a way to live without it for sure.
Well, and it's still just even from the health standpoint, it still is a toxin, right? That is going into your body. And I think a lot of us like forget that. And I mean, I'm Italian, so I'm like, I love my wine, but I actually just came off of like not having anything to drink for 3 weeks. And, then I'll have a few drinks, which I did this past weekend. And while I was out in Calgary, and now I'm back here, and I finished a glass of wine with my mom last night. And I was like, and then that's it. I probably won't drink for another few weeks, although I am seeing you at an event tomorrow night.
Yes.
Maybe I might have a cocktail there. But I think the importance is like, with anything in life, right? Like if you need it and you can't turn that switch off, that becomes an issue. But understanding also like the health impact that it has. But what I wanted to ask you about, if you've heard of this, you can hashtag it, hashtag sober curious, and you'll see all kinds of different influencers and millennials and younger who are going, I can accomplish more the clearer I am, which is true with anything. And from a business standpoint, so much of the social networking, so much of the deal signing, right? And negotiations, usually post negotiations, happen around alcohol. Has that ever been a problem or a setback? Not a problem, but have you ever found that that's been a disadvantage for your position in business?
I think if it's going to be a setback or a disadvantage, is because you've created it that way. So for me, I've not found it to be that way. And I have a lot of people that, I shouldn't say a lot, there's 1 or 2 people I know that don't drink, and they constantly feel like they're at a disadvantage. They constantly feel left out. And well, everyone goes to bars and I don't want to go to bar because I don't want to drink. And for me, I don't care. I will go out and I will be with people that are drinking. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't feel left out. I don't feel like, oh, I'm the odd one out. I'm not drinking. No, I'm great. And even with meetings, yes, of course, it happens all the time. You can be at a business cocktail reception, or as you said, you're doing a celebratory thing. And I also don't make a big scene out of it. I don't say, whoa, I don't drink, guys. It's just my life choice. I'm not trying to put that on anyone. So for me, sure, I've not felt it as a setback, but I understand why people would feel it that way. I just think it's a change in your own mindset. If you look at it as something negative, it'll be something negative and it'll follow you around all night. But for me, I don't look at it as a negative. This is how I would like to be. And I want to be up at 5 a.m. and meditate the next morning. So it's not, I've not looked at it as a setback, but yes, Shay, 100%. A lot of people have asked me, but then what do you do? And when you go out, what do you do? What do you mean, what do I do? There's more things to do than drink.
Totally.
Yeah, I don't have to just sit and drink, guys. There's other things in life to do for sure.
And I mean, yes, sometimes the alcohol social setting can bring you together. Yeah. But like you said, it's not like you have to have alcohol. And one thing that I do, especially like when I'm fasting, and I'm sure you can share this, I don't announce to people that I'm fasting. I'm not fasting because I want somebody to pat me on the back. Sometimes it's for spiritual reasons I fast. And other times it's actually for health reasons that I'm fasting, to cleanse my cells, do a reboot, whatever it is. And oftentimes, like I call it fancy water, where you can choose to have it in a boring glass that looks like a water glass, or you can be like, yeah, I want that in a bougie wine glass, and I want some bougie mint, and I want some bougie ice, and I want, you can make it look like it's not about caring about fitting in and making me still look like I'm drinking alcohol if I'm not drinking alcohol, but you're also feeling like you're actually enjoying something that's not just water.
Yes.
You're right.
100%. I think for me, it's sometimes I'll do, so you mentioned that there's a lot of companies now, right? They're doing mocktails. I've definitely noticed that, which is really cool for me to see that there's, a whole movement around, okay, well, there are people that don't drink a lot and let's give them something to drink. So as you said, when you go to these restaurants and bars, you're not just drinking ginger ale or water, or for me, I'll do cheers with a mug of tea, but it's more fun, exactly as you're saying, to have a cool cocktail. Here at the Canopy at Hilton, we have a restaurant called Dia, and I made sure that we had mocktails for people like me that don't drink. And they're amazing, by the way. You have to come and try it. I know you've tried a few. They're amazing. So I love that. And I think that I love that there's a sober, curious movement, because I think then more restaurants will come on board and say, okay, we have a whole list of mocktails for you. And, you can still have fun and drink with everyone and not feel like you're just drinking water, right?
Totally. Yep. Okay, Reet, tell me, Reet is her nickname.
Yes, I was going to say, very few people call me that. It's only the ones that love me the most, and you're just so cute hearing it from you.
I do. So, and then I'm like, maybe everybody else doesn't know that. So I know you're always got something on the go, and you're always dreaming about achieving the next, not in a negative way. I know you're present in what you're doing, but you're a thriver. So it's like you're moving forward. What is the next evolution for yourself? What are you working on right now? What you can tell us about?
Yeah. I'm like thinking, well, stuff that I can tell you about. Yeah. There's definitely something really, really exciting, which I'll tell you about tomorrow, but I don't think I can say here. Super freaky exciting and one of a dream for sure. But the other thing that I can talk about is expanding our company into the US and, looking at hotels across the border, which is fantastic. There's cities like San Diego that I've always loved. And other countries. That's kind of what we're looking at now. So that's definitely going to be the next evolution, I would say, as you said.
Let me ask you too, as we kind of talked about it a little bit before, I think around the family dynamic with like your dad and even like your brother, and you have such a good relationship with your brother in business. What are some of your secrets for that? Because it's not always smooth sailing. Like, obviously it's still family dynamics, never mind human dynamics. But for you, like what have been some guiding principles for yourself that might even be good for me since I have a brother?
100%. The first thing I think, and I know you'll relate to this, Shay, the first thing is that you can't take things personally. And I think a lot of times with our family, we go to them with ideas or suggestions or whatever it is. And I don't know what your family, but my family, we're the type that we will give you feedback immediately. And it's not always good feedback. We will all openly tell you whether your idea is insanely lame, never going to work, all the ideas that won't work. That is how my family operates. So I think for the number one thing I would say, especially in any family atmosphere, is that you can't take things personally and you have to take out that emotion and pretend that, your dad or your brother, they're just your colleagues. So if you're going to talk about business, let's just keep it to business, and let's also keep the surroundings as a business atmosphere, because a lot of times, I'm sure you experience this, dinners and breakfasts become board meetings, and it could just completely ruin the meal. So I think that there has to be a time and a place. But the first 100% lesson that I've learned is that you can't take things personally. Your family might not always agree with you. They might not always like your ideas, but listen, they might have some feedback and some constructive criticism that can make your idea even better. But I think with family, we're even more sensitive and we're even more almost guarded and on edge to say, oh, well, now my dad doesn't believe in me. Now my brother doesn't believe in me. With my family, we don't operate that way. And we are insanely open with each other. And we've had to learn to just not take things in a personal manner.
Smart. And I mean, that can be applied to all areas of life, in business and friendships, relationships, I think that's very golden advice across the board.
Absolutely.
Reet, before I let you go, it's so great being on here today with you. You're on the Freedom CEO podcast. And so the main question I always love ending with is, when you think about being the CEO of your life, not of your company, not of the business, but of your life, how has owning your decisions brought you freedom?
Oh, such a good question. I think that the only way you can own your life is if you own your decisions. And I think a lot of times, and especially women, we tend to not own our decisions. We give a little bit of our decisions to everybody else around us. And we're always looking for someone else's approval, someone else to come in and say, yes, you're doing the right thing, but you have to let it all go. And you have to let it go in the sense of you're happy with your path, you're happy with your decision. You're not going to care what your mother, your father, your brother, your cousin, your sister, you have to let all of that go. And I think the only way to truly own your decisions is when you can own it as the CEO of your life, and understanding that only you know your path, only you know what your heart is saying to you, and only you know your path forward. And that is the best way to own your decisions and the best way to achieve ultimate freedom.
I love it. I love it. I love you. Thank you for your time today and coming on. And I know you'll be back. You'll be back.
We will talk again for sure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Thanks for tuning into the Freedom CEO podcast. If you got value out of today's show, I would love for you to leave a review, as it will help my show reach other people as well. You know what to do. Download this episode, click the like and subscribe button. If you feel like spreading more love, hop over to Instagram and share today's show in your stories. Remember to tag Shane Vidyata and the Freedom CEO. My DMs are always open, so drop me a line. I'd love to connect. Until next time, keep owning your decisions to live a life of freedom. Live a life you love.